am Groot, I am Groot, I am Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot, I am Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot. Astrodar.
I am Groot. I am Groot.
I am Groot. Yes, you heard that right. That is enough of that, listeners. We are here with episode 67 of the Winning Hand podcast. I am joined by Astrodar, of course, and we are talking about Groot today. Excuse us a little bit of fun as we introduce everybody in the way that Groot would. No, we are talking today about the Groot ally. So we thought we'd have a little bit of fun with that. I think it went on long enough because you probably didn't know what we were saying. You haven't been doing your Groot homework. Astrodar, how are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, surprisingly well. You know, just enjoying some champions recently. Kind of really upticked how much I'm engaging with it right now. So
the con really was a roller coaster and really kind of propelled you.
Yeah. A lot of momentum coming off of that a little while ago. That's got me brewing a lot, doing a lot of stuff. So
I will say, in years past, when I've gone to the con, I've had the build up, which was less than it was this year. I will say, the hype was way more this year, and I have a lot more people in the community that were kind of became a frenzy, right? We're feeding each other.
Mm-hmm.
And in years past, I've had a big drop where I will do the con, and then when I come home, I'm put it away. I need a break from Marvel Champions. I put everything on the shelf, and I don't touch it for a couple of weeks. I didn't have that this time. I came home and put it away for a few days, but very quickly was right back into it. I'm not sure what led to that, but have you had a letdown in the past, or have you always has the con always kind of propelled you on?
I've always had just a little bit of a dip afterward, very light. But this year, I think it amped up. I definitely, I think it's helpful that at this point I've established a lot of people at the con that I talk with, and so now coming off the con, I'm getting to catch up on some of those conversations even weeks later where it's oh yeah, we had talked about this briefly, let's flesh that out, do some ideas, follow through on some ideas. And that's really helped. Feeling more locked into the community has felt like it's just really kept me engaged.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the community has grown, and my part of the community has grown. I don't mean my visible presence, but I just mean the connections that I have that I message with just about daily has expanded, and they've become real friends where they used to just be people who played the game. And so now there's a number of people I talk to regularly. And so that's helped me stay clued in, I think. For people who are not watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, Astrodar's backdrop is clear to you. If you're listening to this, I will say he has all of the campaign boxes for the game splayed behind him on his calyx. Anyone who plays board games knows about the calyx. It's got some other Marvel games, it looks like, or Marvel adjacent games. So let me ask you this, Esther. You kept all of those boxes?
Yes.
Are they empty? Do you have cards in them? Do you store other things in them? Or why did you keep them?
I was raised in a family that believes in a perfectly good box. So I have a really hard time ditching a perfectly good box. These do not have anything, well, most of them don't have anything Marvel Champions related, but I do use them for Galaxy's Most Wanted has all my dice. So all my dice are stored in there. One of them, it's the main campaign box, the main core box has all the rules booklets and stuff like that. But now I use them for extra storage from game stuff like dice, sleeves, things like that.
Interesting. And you have them, out. Did you always have them out, or did you put them out just for this podcast?
That was just for this,
Hey.
Figured I'd look fancy and stuff. So I was why not? Why not spread them out?
This is the people's podcast, and you are giving the people what they want. You are a true man of the people, and you are a returning guest, Astro. This is your third appearance, I believe.
Yep,
on
third
the podcast.
Appearance.
Do you remember the first two?
Yeah, I was with Joss getting to talk about a couple solid cards, Starhawk, which is one of my favorite cards in the game, and Clear the Area. So those were a lot of fun.
You did remember. Okay, yes, those are the two. They were a long time ago, episode 30-something. It's been a while. It was a year ago, actually, after the con last year.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back. We're happy to have you. We are going to dive into Groot today. We have some lore that you brought. So you're going to tell us a little bit about the character Groot. We're going to talk about the Groot ally card today, a card I quite like, so I'm excited to talk about this. Before that, we're going to get into what we've been playing recently. Astrodar, I am dying to hear what you've been playing and what you've been enjoying since the con. So please, why don't you go first?
On the hero side, I've been trying out Shuri. I'm really big fan of Black Panther. the original Black Panther kit. So I was curious how this was going to compare for me. And so I've been trying out Shuri in leadership, which is so it's actually by V. Jackson. He's the one that made the list, but it pretty much uses the Dora Milaje package and some general leadership stuff like rapid response and suit up, and then sidekick for T'Challa. But I've been surprised at how different the kit can end up feeling as you play it from Black Panther, while still kind of throwing back to, you can see the references in the kit and everything. But my favorite part has kind of been you can kind of just focus on like one side or the other. Like I can go just Dora Milaje and focus on that, or I can go just T'Challa with sidekick. And that's actually kind of where I've been headed with it, is like I kind of want to cut out all the other ally stuff, just do T'Challa and Shuri, and just have the Black Panther back and forth, triggering all her upgrades.
Do you also have the 4-cost leadership ally Black Panther in your deck?
I do not, for moral reasons. No, just kidding. I am not super fond of the unique rules as they are, and so I haven't been able to cross that line. While it is totally legal, there is that sneaking suspicion in the back of my mind that the FFG police are going to show up and tell me I'm thematically wrong.
Yeah. Just to be clear, listeners, that is a legal interaction, right? You can have Black Panther, Shuri. You can have T'Challa, the signature ally, and you can also have the 4-cost leadership ally, Black Panther, in your deck and in play at the same time, correct?
And there's been some really interesting decks that I've seen. I'm trying to remember who posted one recently. But they posted one on the database that used that and leveraged that. And I can look at it and acknowledge it, and like very clever deck building, and it's a good use of it. But then I go to like actually build it, and I'm like, I can't do it.
No, I think that was Sandy. Shout out to Sandy, guy who makes the big cards at the con. Yes. He has a different name on Marvel CDB. I'm not sure what it is, but he did do that. And he had a whole rules lecture he wrote. I say lecture in a friendly way. It was just like a briefing about how the lecture, or it was just a discussion of how the rules work and why this interaction works, which is interesting. The 4-cost leadership ally I want to like more than I do, but this isn't about that. So Shuri.
Yes.
How have you been enjoying Shuri?
She's great. I like her more than the original Black Panther kit. They play differently, but this play cadence is a lot more similar to a lot of my top heroes, at least the way that I'm engaging with it, where you have lots of returns to alter ego. You're grabbing lots of card draw through alter ego. And then here, I feel less pressed to go all out with her upgrades and get everything out. Instead, I feel like I'm usually keeping one out and cycling through the others. But I just find it really fun to be able to be like, okay, what's my important thing? Damage? Great. Here are her claws. She's going to attack for 1, deal 2 damage. T'Challa attacks for 2, deal 2 damage. Ready them both with the side by side and do it again. It allows you to go with very little buildup and push that tempo style play, which I really like.
Okay, so you have been playing a lot of Shuri. Anything else you want to discuss?
Yeah, on the encounter side, I've been going through Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. again a little bit, but the one that's been really jumping out that I caught the bug at the con for was Mr. Negative. Ooh. So that's the custom design by Andy N. And I've had so much fun with that one. It really makes you engage with the game in a different way because it punishes... In a way, it punishes blocking with allies, but it offers it up as a choice. So throughout the whole scenario, you're given these choices that you're like, I could go either way on this. And like, sometimes I'm going to do this thing because it's good now, but it's going to punish me later. So just engaging with that, with those choices have been a lot of fun. And on that same note, Joystick, the Thunderbolt mod, has been popping up into a lot of my scenarios. Because again, I really love those choices.
So Boomguy is famous for tangents, so I got to go on a little tangent and ask you a question. So allies and chump blocking, I hear a lot of discussion in the community about so many people appreciate, ways that punish chump blocking or that prevent chump blocking or that disincentivize chump blocking. Do you think chump blocking is a problem in the game? And if you were to somehow start the game from scratch again, would you change that rule somehow?
I don't mind chump blocking at face value. it is one of those things that, like, at the highest level, pushing the hardest content, you're going to kind of default to that because it's a very powerful strategy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're engaging with the game, like, dialed back just a little bit, even just on expert, there's so many avenues now to not rely on it. So I like it being there as an option. But my favorite thing that I like that the designers have been doing a lot more, particularly since Tony has joined up, is he seems to really understand a lot of these main strategies, these powerful strategies, and then he feeds into them with his designs to, like, maybe he's not discouraging chump blocking, but he is rewarding defending or things like that. And I like when the meta that is set by the designers encourage you to engage outside of these extreme powerful situations and strategies. So would I design it differently? I think allies could definitely be dialed in a bit to be more in line with, like, events and things, but they don't bother me as is, partially because I don't choose to engage with them fully that way.
That's interesting. I think so. You would not change the rules, or, like, if you were designing the game from scratch. Obviously, this is a completely counterfactual hypothetical exercise.
Yes,
you wouldn't change anything about them as they are. I mean, like, their power level, but the whole blocking that aspect of it.
No, I don't think that I would, and I think I'd rather see more interesting designs on the ally side, which Groot is going to feed into this great when we tackle that in here in a bit. But the actual thematically, sometimes it's bugs me. Like, oh, here's my friend, jump in front of this giant rhino. But I like having that avenue as an option and would rather just see the designs of both the encounters and the player cards encourage you to do other things while that still being an option. But I don't know. What about you? Do you think you would alter it so that it's a little less prevalent?
Man, people don't usually come on the podcast and ask me questions, Astrodar. I think I would. I've long kind of thought, I don't know how much I've shared about this, but I've long thought that the overkill mechanic should just be the base way that allies can block. So you could sacrifice them and save yourself some points of damage, but ultimately you might still take some damage. And I think if you went that route from the ground up, you would tweak how they work a little bit, right? They would have to probably have more hit points and likely take more consequential damage as a result, so that you would get not too many more activations out of them. They'd be so valuable, but that you would be able to block a little bit of advantage or a little bit of damage. And I think then you might be incentivized to use them in other ways. Giving them tough cards would become super powerful, then you might just have created a new strategy. But I've always kind of felt it feels a little odd thematically, like you said, that you're pushing your friends in front of a train, but also that, like, that one hit point can save you 1,000,000 points of damage with, like, completely irrelevant, right? And there's so many times you're playing a game in a 4-player, you're like, oh, this person's blocking, and, like, you don't even look at the boost cards. It's completely irrelevant unless there's some ability. It's just like, okay, oh, it's 5, 7, 12. Okay, whatever. Mockingbird took all of it. So I do think that is a little bit much for me. And I've always thought, I'm not a game designer, but, like, that might have been some way I would have tweaked it, that, like, yes, they can block, but only their hit points, and then you're going to take the rest of it. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I could even imagine a world where that was the route they were headed, and allies just come in with they also have a defense stat where they can do some light reductions of damage and stuff. But that's one of the things that I liked about Next Evolution, was overkill was relatively prevalent in that box. And there were lots of ways that would encourage having actual defense strategies beyond that, while leaving that more as an option, like you're talking about, of like, I might still throw this ally in front to either pull the attack to me or to eat just a couple points of damage, but more likely than not, I am just going to exhaust and defend for myself.
Yeah, I think it is just the way it works is a little bit, I feel like the play pattern was established very early. Play the ally, get a few activations, block the rest of it. Having played a little bit of Lord of the Rings, the consequential damage was a tweak from that game. So blocking felt a little more consequential, no pun intended, because they could effectively stay out there forever and contribute their stats to the game. Like, once you played them, they can be there doing questing or damage or whatever forever.
Mhm.
Here they have a limited time, so it feels like, well, they're going to eventually go anyway, so sacrifice them. Whereas, like, if you play an ally that could stay forever and is expensive and has a cool ability, like defending did feel a little more like last ditch. Like, I just have to throw Aragorn in front of this bus because I have to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're not the same games. I hate to draw through lines like that, but it's the same designers and same basic idea. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I would tweak it a little bit so that the blocking wasn't so powerful from the very beginning. But, again, I'm not a game designer. This is Boomguy's opinion.
I think slight tangent to your tangent is that I think a lot of that can feed into play style, that control style of play where you're like, I'm putting stuff out, I'm staying healthy, I'm clearing the board every round until I can push that final damage on the villain. That rewards Chump blocking a lot more than tempo style or rush style plays where you're like, I already paid the cost for this, and that 2 or 3 extra damage from my ally or whatever is more meaningful toward closing this game than for me to actually just take this hit and risk potentially losing the game off of it. And so I think that's also part of the reason why I don't end up chumping as much as I enjoy a more tempo style play, and particularly in solo where it's only my time I'm risking. Like if I lose or whatever, like I don't care if I lose. So if I take these extra little risks and save that little bit of damage, it's a lot more meaningful in solo for getting those games closed faster. But
well, I will double down on your tangent on my tangent and provide another tangent because this was a discussion recently in the Discord. I assume if you're listening to a podcast about World Champions, you are plugged into the Discord community at some level. There are a million different servers. A bunch of content creators have their own servers. Not me, but a lot of them do. But the main community Discord has great conversations too. And I can't remember where I had this conversation recently, but this was talked about to some degree in terms of tempo and pace of play and style of play. And Kennedy Hawk, basically a grandfather of the community, sage old head that he is, he posited that the mutagen formula pack did a lot to establish play patterns in the game. And he essentially wrote a fairly long string of comments about how, because it was about risky business, I think, and he said, well, mutagen formula had the same thing. And together as a pack, as venerated as that pack is, it did a lot to establish this turtling style of play that has persisted to today. I don't remember if you were in that conversation or not. Astrodar, were you?
Yeah, I participated very lightly, but I was reading it. It was because it found Andy N, who did the Mr. Negative scenario, did a guest article on my blog about risky business and some ways to fix it. And so that's kind of where that conversation originated, was based around that. But I found it very intriguing. I thought it was a great insight into kind of how the meta of the community has developed based on those early scenarios.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much. Well, he said he didn't, Kennedy Hawk, that is, didn't like the pack overall because of what it's done to the community. I think mutagen formula is one of the community's favorite scenarios. And I would say you don't have to turtle to play that scenario. I think that is a great scenario, whatever your play style. I think Risky Business has some issues, and I did read your fix. I will link that down below if you have played Risky Business or skipped it because everyone told you it's bad. Andy N, community stalwart who did the Mr. Negative scenario, he did do a guest post on the Alter Ego Chronicle, your blog, and he proposed some fixes with content that's already out there, so not custom content, just some ways to kind of tweak it with mod sets and rule sets to make it better. I think it does, but yeah, I do think that's an interesting take from Kennedy Hawk, and usually when he says something about the game, I pay attention because I think he's a pretty smart guy and pretty plugged in. He's been here since the beginning. So I think there's a lot to what he said, to be honest, and I do think that has become the dominant style. I also think that conversation touched on the Solo Champions League, which you and Joss do, and Joss is like his big thing. And I don't want to trash that community, but I do think that also further drills down on a play pattern that is kind of turtly and not overly cautious, but it does reward a very clean board, no minions, no threat. And I think some people just play the game differently, and it's not represented a lot.
Yeah, Solo Champions League has definitely influenced my own games where I have to have a very different mindset of like, this is a Solo Champions League game or a normal game, because the scoring in this League rewards having a clean board, no threat, lots of health, and then tempers that by wanting you to go fast. But the fact that you're always looking to clean the board, clean the threat, and stay healthy changes your play patterns. Whereas instead in a normal game, like, hey, you're Hulk, you have tons of health, use it. Like if you have 6 health at the end of the game, you had 5 health that you could have taken a hit from. Like you wasted some of those resources. At least that's how I feel. And it's hard to shift that mentality. And I do think Solo Champions League is a blast. And I have so much fun with that challenge side of it. But it does need separated to me into like a challenge format. And then the actual mindset for regular games becoming more tempo based and not going into that turtle mindset in the same way.
Well, the podcast professional that I am, Astrodar, this is going to circle us all the way back around. You thought we were meandering on a path, but we were actually, this is a circle. And here we are back to what Boomguy is playing recently, because that's where we started, what you were playing recently. What I have been playing recently is exactly feeds out of that last discussion point that I mentioned. I have been making a point, it was before Kennedy Hawk said this, I made a point before the con even, to increase the pace of my game, to start pushing more damage, to worry less about all the things that come out, not rushing necessarily. I do think rush is a very particular game style that I'm not necessarily going to that extreme, although I'm experimenting a little more with pushing in that direction. And I mentioned even before the con, originally when I thought about my decks for the con, I was going to bring all aggression decks. My idea really was to push damage this year, totally independent of Lazy Titan. I wanted to really push, and I've been enjoying playing aggression. So hearing more and more people complain about how bad aggression has been interesting as my own journey has kind of circled back, and I'm now playing a lot more aggression than I was. Anyway, I've been doing a lot of aggression recently, and even if not aggression, like pushing. So pushing up my own style a little bit. I've been really enjoying 2 heroes recently. I've been playing a lot of Ghost Spider in aggression. Also other aspects, but for this point here, we'll stick with aggression. She's always been good in aggression, but really just like focusing on heroes that are a little more event-based. Fewer upgrades in my deck, just putting a lot more events in, which makes it a little less maybe consistent. Instead of having like 3 events that I put 3 copies of, I might put 6 or 7 events and put between 1 and 3 copies of each, really trying to get those and push and not playing upgrades out, just getting them and pushing. I played a lot of my Captain America aggression deck at the con that I published and talked about before, which is very much like from turn 1, you just push damage. That's like the primary purpose of it. And I've also been playing a lot of Deadpool recently. Deadpool is a hero that I have talked a lot of trash about. I said he's not for me, I'm not interested. I tested a lot of Deadpool decks before I went to the con because I thought this will be my wild card deck. I wanted to bring a wild card, and I thought, well, this is a pretty good one. I just couldn't settle on a deck that I really was happy with, that I wanted to spend a significant amount of time playing at the con, so I didn't end up bringing him. There's a couple contenders that didn't make the cut there, but I've been playing him a lot since I came back again, and I'm close to a couple of decks I think I like. I don't know if I'll publish anything. It's kind of old at this point, but I've been playing a lot of aggression, but I've been finding more and more use of him in Justice. I played a lot of Justice. I went to a local meetup recently and I played a bunch of Deadpool Justice, focusing on Great Responsibility as one of the cards.
Okay.
Little clue for those of you out there, the next episode is Great Responsibility. So episode 68, look for that. But yeah, so I've been thinking about Great Responsibility a lot and I'm trying to build it, and I think there may not be a better character to use that card than Deadpool. And so we were playing this weekend, and I think we played the Carnage scenario from the con, and at one point we had 6, 7 acceleration icons, so it's crazy. And then, he just prevents, it adds 8 anyway, so I think I prevented like 15. It's just like, I had a couple hit points left. You just play Great Responsibility, you just take all of it as damage, who cares, flip back down. You can't die anyway. But yeah, so this isn't necessarily the tempo, but he can thwart really well. And being able to just tutor whatever card you want, right? You just end up flipping down a lot. You just always get Yoo-Hoo and play that, Overwatch, all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, so I've been playing a lot of Deadpool, but mostly I've been focusing on trying to push the tempo of my games. And instead of the first couple of turns really finding upgrades that I want to stick around, maybe only identifying one upgrade, the one I really, really need to make my deck work, and hoping for that. And otherwise, you just push damage. And if the first turn of the game I have a damage event, I just push it. I've been enjoying it, actually. It's been really nice to change my style because I think I did play a lot like everybody else for a long time where you play your upgrades, you just manage things, manage it, and you get to a point where like, okay, I'm built up, now let's go. But like, you could just end the game a lot quicker, even without rushing, if you just a little more direct.
Right. That's I find that really compelling to find a hero that you don't like Deadpool, or don't like maybe strong, but
No,
to
that's
use
fair.
it to elevate a card that like you're not touching with anyone else.
Yeah.
And so I find that really compelling as a route for the origin of your deck building. Is that where it started? Was like, here's some cards I want to use, or were you just like, I'm going to make myself like Deadpool?
No, I mean, Deadpool started with like, I want to bring a wild card. And I've talked a lot of trash about him on the podcast. I don't like the movies. I don't care about the character at all. Like, I think it's a little bit much for me. So that wasn't there. I did come around the pool aspect a year or so ago, and I've talked about that. And then finally, Deadpool's one I hadn't really played, and I thought, okay, well, maybe this will be my wild card. And the more I played him, I just couldn't quite find a hook that I liked with him, so he didn't come to the con. But then, I decided Great Responsibility is going to be a card we would talk about because it's a card nobody talks about. And
Right.
one of the reasons we picked some of the cards we talked about is because nobody talks about them. And then I thought, well, it just kind of clicked in my brain that he'd be a really good one. So I started kind of experimenting from there. But it goes back to the idea to me that, like, I don't know how I'd ever get bored of this game because there's so many ways to interact with it and there's so many ways to play it. Like, if you're bored with the game, I think, A, that's valid. You could just have other hobbies and the games you like and you can move on. But oftentimes I feel like if you just change a little bit, right? If you just change how you play, maybe you're bored of turtling, try rushing. Maybe you rush all the time and it's boring because you only ever see 2 encounter cards in the game. Well, like, force yourself to slow down. Play a hero that you don't like or that you can't quite grok. Play cards that aren't good, quote unquote. One of the most fun decks I had at the con was with Colossus and Anticipated Attack. And those 2-cost cards that require a player side scheme in the victory display are kind of frowned upon and not good, quote unquote. So I was like, well, let's try to make these cards good, and I've been playing a lot with the aggression one, which is called Critical Hit, trying to make that into a deck with Gwen Stacy. So I'm still working on that. But, I like to find cards that people don't like or people don't talk about and see if you can use them. Because I think there's a use for basically every card in the game.
I agree. It's, for me, I think it stems from a point of stubbornness of like being like, no, I can make this work. And so I love finding those cards that are, especially on first glance when it's like, hey, a release article, that's a bad card. I'm like, we're going to figure out a use for it. And, in a lot of places, it's going to be a bad card. But there's so many heroes and different combinations of aspects now that you can actually find a good use for pretty much whatever card that you want.
Yeah.
But we'll see. There are cards that I still put in the deck, try it out, don't end up using it, but at least I can point and be like, I tried. So,
yeah. I mean, I use a lot of cards that people write off, to be honest. I published a deck a few months ago, an Iceman Justice deck that made use of Impede, and I thought that was quite good. Impede's a card that people poop on all the time. My Gwen deck with Critical Hit that people also don't like uses Warning, which people also don't like. I have a Vision deck that uses Ground Stomp. Like, people also think that card's bad. Just about every card you can find a use case. It's not a blanket always good, right? It's just easier, and there's no wrong way to play the game. I say that all the time. It is just easier to take a hero and take all the good Web Warrior allies and make the call and call it a deck, right? That's just an easy deck to build. That doesn't mean it's bad. That doesn't mean you should feel bad playing it. If that's what you enjoy, then play away. But for me, I'm a bit of a contrarian by nature, and I enjoy finding the ones that are a little less used. I've played Make the Call too. But at some point, it's like, even if it's really good, I get bored of it. I have like deck ADHD. Or even if I find a deck that I really love and I play it 4 or 5 times in a row and I'm like, I can't play this anymore. I want to play something different and try new cards, new interactions.
Yeah, and that comes partially just because of how tuned in some of us are to the game. Like, I mean, I'm a couple thousand plays in.
Yeah.
I'm going to get bored of some of these play styles, especially if it's something that is more generic that can tie to any hero versus something that's more keyed in. But I really enjoy that same thing of just find a card, let's find a use case, and it's not always gonna, tackle the hardest scenarios. Ronin's not going down while I'm using my Test the Defense Nova deck, but I mean, it might.
But
I
that's
should try
okay.
it now that I've said it.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, I've been doing a lot more events in my decks. So, yeah, so that's what we've been playing recently. We have gone a long time. We haven't mentioned the card. We've mentioned it. We haven't talked about it. It's Groot.
Yeah.
Before we get to talking about Groot, I would like to hear a little bit of lore from our Groot expert, Groot fan.
Definitely fan. Expert is probably a little too far across the line. I will first though pose to you. I'm gonna let you try and guess the first appearance of Groot. It's a weird one to me, at least. So anyway,
am I guessing
first appearance
year?
Of Groot,
the
yes,
comic?
Just year. Year works perfectly fine. If it helps, the first appearance was in Tales to Astonish. That'll be a hint for you.
1973.
Oh, that was close to his second appearance. His first appearance was in 1960, and he was a bad guy. He came to Earth to kidnap people. He jumped ahead. He showed up in the Hulk again as a bad guy, and that was in 1976. And 77, he was a nightmare that Peter Parker had.
Okay.
And so then his next big one, let's see, when would that have been? I think it was 2006-ish. He was being hunted by the Howling Commandos, but not those Howling Commandos.
Oh.
It was Nick Jr. that was running the group, but it was like a bunch of monsters, essentially. So like Abomination was on there, and Sasquatch and stuff was part of that team. And they hunted Groot down, and I joined the team, something like that. And it wasn't until 2007 where we first get to see him in kind of his Guardian state, where he is introduced to Guardians and becomes part of that team. And that was in the Annihilation run, which if you don't read comics or haven't read Annihilation, that is like the Guardians cosmic series to read. Start with Annihilation, go through. It's amazing. And you get to see all this fun Guardian stuff across it.
Comics are confusing, man.
They are weird. They are jump all over, especially once you start getting crossover events and stuff. It gets odd. I got into trying out comics from Marvel Champions, so I'm definitely coming to it late. But anyway, so Groot is a Flora Colossi, right? So this whole species of Groot, like big trees, they basically were raised by this group. They were created by the Gardener, which we have in the game as a cosmic entity.
Do we? You'd be forgiven for forgetting.
Yes, right. But no, he does exist. Came with Adam Warlock. But he was who created this race, and they are taught through sunlight and photosynthesis. They are all geniuses, including Groot, which I don't know why the trait's missing, but there you have it. The planet that he was raised on, Planet X, was basically you had the Flora Colossi as kind of the upper class. Then you had a bunch of these maintenance mammals that were the underlings. And Groot at one point, like he was friends with these maintenance mammals, but they were kind of looked down upon by the rest of the Flora Colossi. So at one point when one of them was getting picked on by one of his, from his own species, Groot intervened and ended up killing one of the other Flora Colossi. And that's when he got exiled from the planet, and kind of where we see his journey take off, where he is no longer a part of that group, but ends up with the Guardians. But yeah, so he goes on adventures, Annihilations, where he meets Rocket, and pretty much they become best pals and journey on from there.
All right, I have a couple questions.
Yes.
First of all, what is the difference between a Flora Colossi and an Ent? Or is an Ent a Flora Colossi? Are they in the same family? Do they acknowledge each other?
They don't, mostly because the Ents don't have interstellar communication yet, at least at the point of this, according to the Similarian or whatever it is. That's a terrible thing. I've never said that word out loud before.
Similarian, I think.
Similarian. I'm not even going to try
Don't
again.
hurt yourself.
Two, and I throw myself out.
Good day, sir. No.
Yes.
Okay, then the next question is, he has a very specific speaking style.
Yes.
How does Rocket become friends with him? How does he learn that language?
So that's something that they're a little iffy about here and there. Like it's very hand wavy, but it is something that as you spend more time with the species, or like with Groot in this specific case, you eventually learn how to understand it. Like their vocal cords are very rough and structured and like rigid, and that's why they can only say these 3 words, I am Groot.
Okay.
But they are communicating a lot, and there are a few people that right off the bat can communicate with them, particularly telepaths, I believe. But anyone else that spends a significant amount of time with them will eventually learn to understand what he's saying, which is why Rocket always knows.
Okay. Okay. Well, any other information on Groot before we go to the card?
That is pretty much it in terms of like his big background. I mean, tons of fun adventures and stuff, but nothing that's like super defining outside of general Guardians stuff.
Is comic Groot pretty accurate to movie Groot? Like if you've only seen the movie, is that Groot?
The first Guardians one, pretty close to it. I think that they don't really highlight the genius aspect in the movie of Groot. Like in the comics, he's like very smart, but they capture it really well. I haven't done much with Baby Groot in the comics. Like they have him there, but a lot as like family style comics, like Infinity Comics and stuff. So we've glanced through a few of them, but I think they capture it pretty well.
He's only Groot in like the first movie, right? And then he blows up, and then he becomes Baby Groot for the rest of the Avengers Endgame saga. He's like Baby Groot and like growing through all that. I think he's only Groot like once, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just in that first film is where we essentially see him as the full size. But yeah, which happens. So I should say that happens to him in the Annihilation comics. So spoilers for this old series. But that is one of the first things that you experience with Groot is him being really awesome, him growing, getting massive, and then him getting destroyed and them raising him back up. But they don't spend a lot of time on him specifically. You just get to see him as the Guardians do their thing.
Maybe we'll have to talk about Hero Groot at some point, because at the con, I remember Aaron talked specifically about Groot because he was either the lead designer or one of the designers on the Hero. And again, we're not talking about Hero today, but he talked about one of the mechanics he wanted to introduce was this growing, where you had to like start as Baby Groot and then gain counters to grow to full size before you could really do anything. And then it was like super not fun, he said. So they scrapped that idea. But do you remember him saying that?
Yes. Yeah. I thought it was really compelling. Like I can see why someone would want to start there. And I think that could be an interesting thing to revisit later. I like what they did with it to capture the Groot that like I kind of think of when I think of the Guardians. So I like where they landed this route instead of the starting with Baby and growing up.
I will say, I hope we get like, why do we not have a Baby Groot ally?
Yes.
Like they could have that right now. I would be here for a Baby Groot ally. That's sick.
Yeah. No, he's adorable. I want all the adorable creatures in the game. So at some point we need Groot, Baby Groot, we need Jeff, a bunch of the cats.
I know
There's so
you
many
like
cats
Jeff.
in Marvel.
All right. Well, let's get to the card of the day today. Then we'll move there next. We had a lot of lore. Let's talk about Groot. I am now sharing it on the screen. So can you please read the card for us, Astrodar, and then we will talk about it from there.
Yeah. So this is Groot, a basic ally. He costs 3. He has a wild resource. He has 6 health points, 1 thwart with 1 consequential, 2 attack with 2 consequential. He's guardian traded. He has, for his text, play only if your identity has the guardian trait. And then he has an ability that is response. After Groot defends against an attack, heal 2 damage from him. And of course, his flavor text is I am Groot.
I mean, epic flavor text. That's so clever. All right. I have a couple of things. First, I have a complete non sequitur to ask you. When I was at the con playing with people, I realized that people play allies differently. When you have an ally on the table, sir, do you use counters to count how much damage is on there or how much health they have remaining?
I used to be a health remaining person, so I'd start at him as 6 and then count down. But from some other games that are counting the actual damage on the thing, it switched me over, and so I count up now.
Yeah, which is what the rules, I think, say, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I see some of these people who are health counters, and it's madness. I don't know. There's like a blue die, and it has a 6 or a 5, and I think, what the hell? Yeah, it's very confusing. I am a damage counter, so we are doing it correct. Anyway, so let's talk about the art first. That's where we always start. So can you, for people who are not watching this on YouTube and who are listening, can you please describe what we are seeing here?
Yeah, so we've got Groot, remember, looks kind of like a tree. So this is adult Groot, and looks like he's slamming the ground, and there are just bodies flying everywhere behind him, some tentacle nonsense, pieces flipping over, and he looks very angry.
He does. If you've never seen Groot, imagine like an Ent. It's kind of like that. Yeah, it's kind of a small image, right? There's not a ton you can glean from this. The background is a little beige, and you can see some beings flying, but you can't really see what they are. But yeah, he looks like he's punching or smashing, and things are flying. He's kind of got his mouth open like he's yelling. But yeah, there's not a ton going on with this art. What do you think about it?
So I think that it captures an aspect of Groot really well. I don't think that it captures his ability that he is doing here with his card very well. And so, like, while it's really neat, I like the framing actually. I do wish that it was something that showed him in a more of a defensive stance than more of an aggressive one.
That's a fair point. I think thematically, maybe there's a mismatch between what we see and what we read. For me, I mean, I just don't know. One of the things I always look for is if I don't know what Groot is, can I tell what Groot is from this picture? And you can see he's wooden, it looks like, but this doesn't tell me anything about the character, right? Like who Groot is, what their abilities are. He's clearly in some kind of, I mean, I can't even say it's a space setting. There's just like a tentacle monster back there, so it's some kind of weird alien thing. But this doesn't tell me a lot about Groot.
I think that's fair. Like if you didn't know who Groot was before opening this pack, this doesn't really show what kind of being he is. Just humanoidish.
He almost looks like Jim Carrey from The Mask. I mean, that reference is a little old, but like the face looks kind of like The Mask.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good point. I think it captures, that he's an alien, that he is in this setting, the galaxy's most wanted type setting, but it could do better for kind of more highlighting him if you got a wider out shot where you could kind of see him more and engaging with more of his like growth or something.
Yeah, agreed. I think they could do a little bit more. It's obviously a comic panel. In fact, it comes from Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy Prelude, Volume 1, Number 2 from 2014. So it is a comic panel that they just cropped down to fit. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I think it could have done more to tell us about Groot visually. But that kind of leads into the next part, which is the thematic aspect of it. And I think you touched a little bit on that about his ability versus what we see. Like overall theme, does this feel like Groot?
It does to me. I think for capturing that fact of like being able to take some hits and grow back and come back, I think it nails it. Like this is one of my favorite thematic allies in the game.
Yes, agreed. I love the theme here. From, obviously it's his name and the title of the card, to his trait, to the trait locking, which I'll get to in a minute, but also his ability, and then the flavor text. Like, it just says so much. It speaks to his sense of humor. It speaks to his intellect. Like, I really think they picked a good quote here. And it really says a lot about the character. But yeah, I think it all works together really well.
I agree. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so the ability, like when he defends, he heals 2 damage. So, it does come after the damage is dealt. So we're talking about how the card actually works, right? You defend with Groot, and then he absorbs however much damage it is, and then you heal 2 of it. So if he takes 6 or more damage, he will die. Like if he takes 7 damage, you don't just reduce it to 5. Victor Mancha, I think his wording is that you just reduce the damage. So in that case, he would stay alive. So Groot has to survive the attack and then he heals. But this is a great way to protect a Guardian. A couple of them are pretty light on defense and hit points, particularly Rocket. But I think Star-Lord also fits in there. And so having something like this to absorb like minions, even pretty beefy minions, he can sit around and defend them for a while. And there's a number of cards that interact with this, which I think you might want to talk about, because I know you've been hitting on that combo recently.
Yeah, one of my favorite combos with Groot is Shake It Off and Hanger Bay.
Yep.
Those two in conjunction really sell it, but Shake It Off does great by itself. That is a protection card that if you're a Guardian, or when a Guardian takes damage, you can play it and it will give that Guardian a tough card, which means that Groot takes a hit, heals back some of that damage, and now has a tough on him. So the next time that he defends and takes a hit, he'll take no damage, but he will still heal. So he can eat a pretty massive attack and then grow back to full, and you can just return that cycle and keep going with him.
Yeah, and, you know, there's ways to game it too. Hanger Bay means after an ally defends for an attack and is not defeated, you can ready it. So that means you could ready if you play Shake It Off to give a tough card, then he would be tough and then immediately ready and be able to defend again. But, you know, you can also use Shake It Off, or not Shake It Off, you can use Hanger Bay to defend multiple times. And remember, you know, I've done this before with minions that are in front of you with pinned down. They still activate. They will still attack. Usually you just skip it. Like if it's a one attack minion, you skip it because it's -2 and you don't move on. But they actually do activate. So if you defend that activation with Groot, you could heal, right, and take nothing. So there's ways to game it if you want to, which is fun. He's one that generally will hit the table and probably not leave unless you really have to, right? You're not going to take a big hit. You generally want to just take the small hits to keep him around.
Right. That's one of the things that was kind of a bit of a theme that was first introduced with the Guardians. It kind of showed up before that, but this is where it was really sold. Was they had a lot of allies that they wanted you to put into play and keep on the table because you were going to get more out of their activations than potentially out of just blocking with them. And Groot nails that perfectly. And I get why he's basic, but he is hands down my favorite protection ally. Like that's a protection ability, hands down. And so I really love that aspect of him, of I'm investing these resources in him and he can sit on the board and impact for the remainder of the game, even if it's just, you know, okay, we can let some minions sit out because he can eat one or two of their attacks if you've got Hanger Bay out, and you can feel like you are getting a whole lot of value out of him.
Yeah, with Hanger Bay and a couple of minions that attack for 2 or less, he could essentially block 2 attacks a return. I think Groot is really fun. So I don't like the trait locking here. I'll just say it. I am not a fan of hard locking cards behind a trait if possible. I think a couple things there. So that's my main point. The first thing is I don't like it because you enter this like weird card gamer space where Rocket can't play him in Alter Ego because he's not a Guardian.
Right.
And I know that's the way the rules work. That always feels unthematic to me, right? Every time also, I can't play Quinn Carrier before I flip up with Captain America because he's not an Avenger. And like, I get it, but thematically, like it's still the same character. So that always just doesn't sit well with me thematically, but also because it really limits how much you can use these cards. And I think sometimes it's possible that it doesn't need to be a hard lock. Sometimes, sure. You know, I think there's some cards it's nice to have locked away, like Welcome Aboard is a card we talked about a few episodes ago, and I'm glad that's a Guardian-only card. I think that's fun. It's a fun Guardian thing, you know, thematically, getting you to join the team. But I don't think Groot has to be hard locked here. I much prefer the Colossus method or the Angel method, where you get a reduction if you are on the team, but it's not impossible for you to play.
I think that the trait lock with Groot as he is warranted 100%. However, I want to see the identities have more identity, or the aspects have more identity. So like make him a protection ally, take the trait lock away, like let him be that protection ally. And yes, it means you're not going to be able to in solo run all the Guardians if they're split up between the aspects. But like Drax is a aggression ally, put him there. Like I would rather see the identities get an unlocked version that is, it's soft locked behind needing to pick that aspect, but it lets the the aspects take on a greater identity without saying you can only use this ally with these 8 characters. And,
Yeah.
it's been years since we've gotten more Guardians. So it's harder to keep Groot feeling fresh and engaging with everything. Like you're still falling back on those others. So I like the trait. Like I get the trait lock as a basic ally, and I get why they did it. I would just rather him be fully protection, no trait lock.
I think I agree with you. That's a good point. I think because he's basic, maybe that's why the trait lock has to exist. I wish we just had more copies. Like, I don't know why we can't have another Groot ally released that is whatever aspect, right? There are only so many Guardians that people know to go around, and there are some in the aspects, right? Like Yondu is a leadership ally, Starhawk is a protection ally. So there are some of those. Venom is a justice ally, right? And Wraith is Wraith a justice? He's a guardian.
Yep,
What
exactly.
aggression guardians? Oh, there's Throg and Angela
And Marvel Boy.
and Marvel Boy. So there's plenty of like the lesser known characters, and so maybe that's what they did, right? They made the big ones basic so that you can always play them, and then the other ones. But like you said, I do think it keeps him feeling a little stale because we haven't had a Guardian release since 2020, 5 years now. There's really no signs that we may get Guardians soon. I think, they've talked about splitting up the waves, so they're not going to be a whole wave of thematic stuff, so you could get like a one-off Guardian. But I don't know that there's that many Guardians left that we might see. I know people talk about Mantis, and I think Mantis is like from the movies and well-known, but we have most of the Guardians already, so I don't see a Guardian coming anytime soon, which means these cards are locked with heroes that came out 5 years ago. And that feels a little bad.
Right. And it's not like totally true that they're locked away, because there are plenty of the trait cheating cards like Call for Backup or Make the Call or things like that. But sometimes that can feel bad if I'm wanting to do a thematic deck or a particular thing where I feel like I have to rely on the trait cheating, and it's not my favorite way to engage with things. And so it does, part of that is how I'm approaching the game that is making the space that Groot's applicable feel smaller. But at the same time, it's like I'm not the only one that isn't always going to be doing the make the call shenanigans stuff. And if you're not playing leadership, it's much harder to get that trait cheating in.
Yeah, because you could just make the call him, right, from someone else's discard pile. You cannot include it in your deck if you can't play it, right? That's the rule.
Right.
So I couldn't include this in deck where it's legally it can't be played.
No, you can include it.
Okay.
In fact, I did one blog post a while back that was just trying to break down some of the rules of the game using Doctor Strange that highlight why Doctor Strange is so strong as he is, because he skirts around a lot of rules. And so in that one, I included Groot and a couple other allies. But if you can't play him, it's fine to include him. You just have to find some other way to get them into play. And it usually falls back on make the call or call for backup.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen people include Gamora in decks. She's the one I see included the most because of her ability. Yeah, I think it's a little, I don't know. It feels a little bad. It also means that a lot of my Guardian decks, when I go back to build Guardians, I immediately grab these because it's like, oh, I finally get to play with Drax and Gamora and Groot. So then at least a lot of my initial drafts of Guardian decks kind of feel samey because I grab the same allies because it's my only chance to use them. And they are pretty good. Some better than others. But yeah, Star-Lord's bad. I don't want to say bad. I don't think that's like a helpful way to describe him. I do think he is the one I play the least.
Yeah.
And he's the one whose ability I wish I could use on the hero Star-Lord the most.
Right.
But then
the one Guardian that really wants him is the one that cannot run him.
Yeah, that feels a little bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so then let's talk about the power of Groot. How strong is Groot the ally? What would you say?
I think he is perfectly well balanced. He is strong when you choose to use him with how you choose to use him, and you can build into making him strong, but he is never going to feel like he is breaking the game, like in any aspect. And so I think they nailed it. He's not overpowered. He's not even like super powered. I just think that he nailed like a very good level of strong when you are using him intentionally.
Yeah. I think he's strong. I mean, for a 3-cost basic ally to have 6 hit points and that ability, I think that's really good.
Oh yeah. Well, considering that's 6 hit points plus however many he healed back throughout the course of the game, and you're like, oh, actually, I guess on turn 1 I played a 40 health ally. I just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so if you take away the trait locking, how many decks does this appear in?
It would appear in any protection deck that I am running where I have access to Hangar Bay. And it's tough to call outside of that. He would appear a lot for me. Any squishy hero and anywhere where I have Hangar Bay.
I mean, even without Hangar Bay, does a squishy hero just to like absorb damage from minions? There's always a minion that comes out that you can just like forget about and eat a little bit. I think if he's not trait locked, he is immediately among the stronger basic allies that's out there for me.
I can agree with that. And I probably undersold it a little bit on like him feeling perfectly balanced. And that's a good point. That the trait lock, I think, is what is keeping him feeling that way.
Yeah. Because if he's no Professor X.
Yeah.
He's no Nick Fury, but he's in that like next level for me of allies that are just really strong and can really stick around for a while. Yeah, maybe Professor X should have had a trait lock.
There you go.
But he doesn't. Anyway, it's not about Professor X. So he's strong. Do you think, like, effective resource-wise, pay 4 resources, is it worth it? Is it undercosted, overcosted? How do you feel about the cost?
Ooh, mathematically speaking, I'm fine with where he is. Like, I do think this is a ability that sells at 4 effective resources, right? Because you are effectively saying my entire hero turn is to put this out. And he doesn't have nearly the board impact putting it out, though, as someone like Professor X or Nick Fury, obviously. But you can still, you're effectively answering the villain phase activation, first activation, when you play him, which to me is 4 resources is worth answering that activation and having a bigger board for later in the game.
Is he the strongest Guardian ally of the basics? Or of all the Guardians? Is he the best Guardian ally?
No. I think Starhawk's the best one. And I think he wins it because he interacts with the other Guardians better. He cycles and he's easier to play while doing other things.
I was prepared for you to say he's not and to mention another one, but it was not Starhawk. I do remember that you liked Starhawk quite a bit when we talked about him last time, maybe more than I did, but that conversation we had really turned me on to Starhawk, and I started including him in more decks, to be fair. I thought you were going to say Gamora, because that's the one that jumps to my mind as potentially stronger.
Gamora is super strong, right? Similar to Starhawk, what I look for out of Starhawk is she's generating you a card with each activation. Starhawk is just going to cycle each turn, and you're investing resources and getting a rebate. So the card from Gamora feels a little better. Gamora feels like you need to intentionally need the event to make it feel good churning through your deck. So if you're running event heavy, great. If you are trying to build out your board and get an early Gamora, it's going to suck when you see your cards that you were looking for get milled past. And so there are plenty of times I've played Gamora and opted not to use her ability. Whereas with Starhawk, I feel like I'm always cashing in while building, like being able to, if my board's not built, I'll still play Starhawk. If the pieces are there to make him even better, I'm definitely playing Starhawk. Whereas Gamora, I will play or opt not to.
Okay, we're talking about a lot of cards that aren't Groot. Stay with us, audience.
I love the Guardian, so you're sucking me into all these tangents.
The thing with Starhawk for me is that holds him back a little bit is he feels like I'm running a script. I play Starhawk and I have to do the things in the right order to get him to bounce back to my hand. I effectively can't use him to block. I mean, you can, but that messes up. Then you have to find him again. You can't do the things out of order. Like, he has to do things in a specific order. He feels like SPDR in that way, where, like, I have to play it, then I have to attack, then I have to wait till next turn, then I have to thwart, then it goes back to my hand. Like you have to run the script, and so it feels like I lose some flexibility. Gamora is super flexible, but often, like you said, when I'll play her down, my hand is kind of empty because I spent 4 resources playing her. So then I don't want to use that ability then because I'll get an event in my hand. Unless it's a 0 or 1 cost, I'm not playing it. So then I have to wait till next turn. But then you start generating the resources, the cards that come to your hand. So that feels good. I don't know. I think Star-Lord is maybe the worst one.
I think we can agree Star-Lord is the worst.
I mean, Wraith doesn't get played a lot either. Let's be fair.
I love Wraith. I don't play him tons, but like to be able to slap him down and be like, I have 3 target acquireds. Like he's an amazing tech.
That's fair.
And
Venom is fun too.
Venom I think I play Venom less than Wraith because I only use him in solo when that board's going to be clear.
Yeah, that's the thing. You have to make sure you're thwarting heavy, and then the payoff isn't like amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had an early love affair with Yondu. Like early in the game, I was like, he takes no consequential. That's so cool. But it's only 1 damage, and like it's a lot to invest in 1 damage. I don't know. It feels less cool these days. Rax is really fun, but then if you have like a guard minion or something, I don't know. Yeah, like I just
he's limited. Drax feels a lot more limited. I really like him.
I like him too.
He feels very shoehorned, and I'm doing this one thing.
Rocket is great.
Amazing. Rocket's amazing.
Rocket's an awesome basic ally. I think for me, Gamora, Rocket, and Groot are like all up there in a clump. I might put Groot up top. I think if they were all just like untrait locked, Groot, wow, if they were untrait locked, Gamora is so good.
Gamora would see so much play.
Should be in every deck.
Should be like
absolutely. Maria Hill or Nick Fury. She'd be another Professor X. I feel like she'd be in every deck because you're just pulling events constantly. Okay, she might be the best one in my mind, but Groot's second.
I think I have to go Starhawk, Groot, and then Gamora. It's close.
Wow.
But
Starhawk,
that Gamora ability.
Like Starhawk. Go back and listen to episode 36, I want to say. Starhawk. Somebody will hit me in the comments.
Really
Maybe it wasn't 36. Is this, well, usually one of the things I ask about power, is this like an aspect staple? Is this a deck staple? It can't be because it's a Guardian. Is this a Guardian deck staple? Like if you're building a Guardian deck, are you grabbing Groot first draft every time?
I think I have to say yes.
Yeah,
because the one thing that holds me back slightly on that is Drax is the one that I'm never running Groot in. But for everyone else, I will be looking at Groot. Rocket just really needs the extra bit of protection. Gamora doesn't mind the extra protection. This 3 cost is great for Star-Lord to be able to drop. And
he needs the protection.
Venom can play him out super easy, and he's tapping into his health, so he doesn't mind letting someone hit Groot instead. Like Nebula is another one that I don't feel quite the same draw on Nebula because she spends so much time in Alter Ego. You're not tapping into Groot in quite the same way unless you're playing multiplayer where you're using him to help others. But I think for most Guardians, I'm looking to start with Groot in the deck.
I think he's probably, if I'm building a Guardian, he's usually the first ally I grab, I think.
Yeah.
I think I often grab the basics as like a pack when I'm building it for the first draft because I'm like, and yes, I build most of my decks like pulling cards out of a box still rather than Marvel CDB because I like interacting with them. But I think he's usually like in that first draft because it's like I'm playing a Guardian, which I don't play a ton of Guardians. You're like, I want to have the Guardians, like I want to have Star-Lord and Groot and Rock. I want to have the whole gang. And then you end up cutting some because then you start building an actual deck and it's like, well, I need, this card or this event, and you start shrinking down. But man, Groot is so good. I quite enjoy him. And I think he's strong enough to be like in just about every Guardian deck. And I think if he wasn't trait locked, he would instantly be, for me, in that like top echelon of basic allies.
Easy. Take the trait lock away and he jumps over Starhawk for me.
Yeah. Then I do think he's up there with Professor X and Nick Fury, right? He's up there. Everybody's going to be like, well, if your hero has 9 hit points, right? I'm running this in my Jubilee deck for sure.
Yeah.
Jubilee needs Groot.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about fun before we transition to our final thoughts. How fun is Groot just as a card, either when you slap him on the table or like when you have him out there? How excited are you when he comes to hand? Does he feel satisfying or does he just feel like mathematical and methodical? How fun is Groot?
I think he's actually kind of boring to play and to draw, except for that anticipation of what you might do with it. comboed with other cards, he gets legitimately fun to trigger and activate. But usually I'm slapping him down and I'm not doing anything because I want to preserve all 6 hit points. So it's just like, oh, put Groot out. That's my turn. Like, I'm done. But then if, again, with that Shake It Off or with Hanger Bay in particular, it's like, oh, hey, Groot's out. We're in the villain phase. I'm like, oh, defending your minion. He's ready. Defending your minion. He's ready. Those kind of things where you're actually going to use him a lot. So you don't have any of the fun front loaded. It all comes later.
Yeah, I will agree with that. This is a really fun ally, I think. I do agree with you when you put those combo pieces in, it just takes it to another level. Hanger Bay alone is great with him. Shake It Off alone is great with him. That 3-card combo, man, you are cooking if you get that going. I built a Venom protection deck not too long ago that had Martyr in it also, another unloved Guardian hero. But Martyr and Groot and Shake It Off, and you're just like, tough cards all over the place. It was super fun. I do think, on the one hand, I like that they kind of exist in this ecosystem together as guardians, and they only together as guardians. But on the other hand, I kind of feel like the whole conceit of welcome aboard and of the guardians generally is that anyone can be a guardian, right?
Right.
But then the whole guardian locking seems to fly in the face of that. And they are really more locked than any other group in the game. Like there's so many X-Men and X-Force allies that there are probably just in numbers alone more of them that are hard locked. Like Marrow, and I don't know, there's a bunch of them that are just straight up locked if you're not a mutant or an X-Men. But the Guardians, like as a percentage of their heroes, like is just, I don't know, this is hard. It's not even if you control a Guardian, right? Like the Web Warriors where like I can play Star-Lord, who's the only one who's not locked. Thanks. But then if I controlled him, then I could get Groot, like that would feel fun at least. I just feel like it goes against the ethos of Guardians to have them so locked.
Yeah, I agree that it would amplify the fun going the Web Warrior route, soft locking it. As long as you have a Guardian or are a Guardian, you can play this. And so I think that would amplify the fun. I think, though, that kind of lands just more into that, like, he just shows up a lot more. So it's more fun in the sense, in kind of a bigger picture thing. It doesn't really change his fun in terms of like in the game when you're playing him.
Yeah.
But he does have some like really solid moments of anticipation, which I love. And I guess I should factor that a lot more, like weigh that a lot more of like, okay, he already has 1 damage on him, but he's defending the villain. Like, is this boost card going to knock him out? And I almost feel that anticipation is a higher peak of fun or of like bigger anticipation than when it's coming at my hero. Is just like, is he staying there? I don't know. I enjoy
you do
it
the
a
quick math when the boost card flips. You're like, okay, math. It's like, oh, he survives.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when he survives with 1 HP, and then you're just like, nailed it.
And he's gonna heal. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. I do sometimes I think I wish like a Nowhere or there was some Guardian support that gave you the Guardian trait, right? If you control it. It doesn't have to be Nowhere. It could be something else. It could be like another support like the Milano or something. And if you pay for it, like the Web Warrior, like the Web of Life and Destiny, right? If you just pay for it, you now control a Web Warrior card. You aren't a Web Warrior, but they all rely on having a Web Warrior card. So it's like, oh, if you have the Milano and you have this 3 or 4, whatever cost support it is, it bestows on you the Guardian trait, and you are now a Guardian. That would be cool, because I think thematically it would fit into like anyone can be a Guardian. So I'd like to see that. If there was like a Quinn Carrier thing, like you had a Milano and you became a Guardian. What do you think about that?
I think that'd be awesome to, one, just to broaden where these cards are applicable, but also it's just, there's something engaging about getting the thematic elements of a team onto the board. And because like I'm not huge on X-Men, so I don't like, oh, Utopia's on the board. Like that's a very mechanical read for me. But when something like Nowhere hits the board, I'm like, okay, like this is Nowhere. This is their headquarters. Like this is where they hang out. And it's that thematic does bring some of that deck to life. And so having something like the Milano that I'm much bigger on Galaxy's Most Wanted than most people. But the Milano that showed up there, you never got to feel like you were being a guardian with the Milano. So I would love to see some kind of support that it's like, here's your identity as part of this team and like lets you really engage with the theme more. So I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'd be really cool if there were like, I don't know. I mean, some part of me thinks like from a thematic side here, right? Mechanics aside, part of me feels like every team could have something like that. Like Avengers Tower could have given you the Avenger trait, right? Like it's fine as it is. I like Avengers Tower, but there could have been something, or X Mansion, like could be some iconic thematic piece of kit. And for the Guardians, it could be Milano that when you play it, you now are part of it. You're on the team, right? You have made it. You're now an X-Men. Cool. Or you played Avengers Tower. You are an Avenger now. Like, I think that'd be cool. And if the Guardians is something like that, I think it would help breathe some life into them mechanically. But it's fun, like we're ultimately playing this for theme, a lot of us.
Right.
So, and that's just Boomguy's thoughts. All right. Is this a Spike, Timmy, or Johnny card?
Ooh.
We ask the hard questions here at the podcast.
You do. If I really had to leverage it,
you have to.
And consider the fact that I would put this in so many decks if it was not trait locked, it points to it being a Spike card to me.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's clearly a Spike card, right? This is a efficiency machine. You are just kind of grinding down the damage on you, keeping him alive. He feels very Spike to me. All right, Astrodar, that is Groot. We've talked about the art, theme, power, and fun. We have arrived at the final thoughts section. As you are a guest, a 3-time guest, no less, I will let you choose. Would you like to go first with your final thoughts, sir, or would you like to go last?
I'm going to go first.
All right, love it.
Astrodar. I'm super important, so I should go first.
Final thoughts? Yes, the mustachioed man himself. Let's go.
So I love Groot. Easily, hands down, one of my favorite cards in the game. I think they absolutely nail the theme of the Groot character. I think that the impact that he has on the board is amazing and feels great once you start getting to tap into that and use that. The art, I think there's a little conflict between the ability, but it does okay. Like for me, the art's what's pulling it down a little bit. If I had to give this a rating flat out with that Guardian lock, this is I'm going to be overzealous. I'm going to say it's a 9 for me.
9 out of 10 for Astrodar. Okay, I will be a little lower than you. I will say I like Groot a lot. I think the art is a little bit of a weak spot for me. It feels a little generic. It doesn't tell me a lot about the character if I don't know who this person is already. Groot is famous from the movies, so that helps. But there's a lot of Guardians that aren't famous, like Martyr and Wraith. We're not talking about them. But, I would like the character to kind of be evoked a bit by the art, so I have some better sense of their power set, the character, whatever. I feel like this doesn't quite do that. In terms of the power, I think it's really strong. This is a really strong card. I do think the trait lock is probably keeping it from being a 4-cost card, quite frankly, because it could be easily a 4-cost card. He's got a 1/2 stat line, which is fine, but the 6 hit points is where their life really is, and his response, of course, healing. So super good. Thematically also, I love the just how they've captured the kind of the insouciance and the intellect with the flavor text is an excellent choice. Also, a rarely seen wild resource printed on a basic card, right? Most allies have some kind of a resource. If you want to spend it for something else, I don't know why you would, but it's at least you can do whatever you want with it. I'm a little surprised he's not a signature ally, quite frankly, of Rocket, but that's a different conversation. Fun, yeah, he's fun. He interacts with a number of different cards we've talked about, specifically Shake It Off and Hangar Bay, to form a really, really fun triangle of action. I think it's good. I think the Guardian trait lock holds him back for me, even more than the art, because this just means I don't put him in very many decks, and not by choice, because I simply can't, right? I could make the call, and I could call for backup, but man, that just gets kind of tedious over and over again doing that too much. So that pulls it down for me. I'm going to give him like a 7 out of 10. I think this is a, 5 being right in the middle. I think this is still an above average card. I like Groot a lot. I wish I could play him more, and I can't. So those things and the art kind of pulls it back a little bit for me. But overall, very, very excited to have this card in the game. And Fantasy Flight, if you're listening, I'd love to have more Guardians. Please.
Yes.
I want more
Absolutely.
Guardian allies, heroes, just cards. Like, where's my Baby Groot ally? You know, since we're moving away from like thematic waves, why can't we just have one-off allies? Like, why can't a precon just have a baby? Why can't Falcon have a Baby Groot ally?
There you go.
I don't know. You know, if we're moving away from theme for some of these things, I think that'd be fine because I'd love to see Baby Groot, and Baby Groot is easily my wife's favorite Marvel character. Like, full stop. Where are you on Baby Groot, Astrodar? Baby Groot or Full Groot? Which one do you like more?
Man, that's tough. Baby Groot is adorable.
He's sassy.
But I'll be a full Groot guy.
Okay.
The whole time.
Yeah, he gets pretty sassy, especially in his teenage years. He gets real mouthy.
Yeah.
But, no. I think this is a really fun card. I do wish we had more Guardians. I wish I could play them more, but unfortunately, that's not where we're at. That's not the world we live in. Astrodar, it was great having you here.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on and talking about cards. You know, we are the People's Podcast, and this is a nerdy little endeavor. It was great to see you at the con.
Yes.
Before we go, I would like you to plug yourself a little bit, as humble as you are. Tell the people where to find you. If they want more Astrodar, where would they go?
You can come find me on the Discord. That's where I spend most of my time. So in the community Discord, you can always track me down just as Astrodar. On Reddit, you can find me there occasionally as Infinite Square Whale. And then you can check out my blog, Alter Ego Chronicle. And I am a little sporadic about when I post, but that's where I just like to throw out thoughts on my game or interesting conversations I had or things that I'm enjoying. So you can check me out there.
Yeah, and you, I should also plug, you have started a new endeavor on Discord. So before we go, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about that. What's that all about? Give me a little elevator pitch here.
Yeah, I had so much fun at the con in this multiplayer setting that I think that it's largely missing from the online community, and I want to bring more of that online. So I've been working on getting a webcam set up and encouraging people to try out webcam games in that multiplayer setting. So I'm hosting the game, running the encounter cards. All you need is some sort of capture device like a phone or webcam to point at your cards, and you can play along. And so that is something that I'm branching out into and trying out to see if I can encourage more people to use physical cards, even if they're online.
That's awesome. And you're kind of started this channel thing on Discord, right? Where you can have like a stage or whatever it's called, and you start a game, people can hop in and just observe and then hop out as they choose. Is that right?
Yeah. And we're trying out the stage feature on the community Discord. And so that feature is really just, there's some host that has some speakers, and then anyone else can pop in and out without bothering anyone or notifying anyone, and can come and hang out and chat while getting to engage with some of that multiplayer stuff. And so I've been running some. I think Kennedy Hawk is setting up. He's on the other side of the United States, and so he can capture a different time group than me. So I think we're expanding that and trying out getting more of that multiplayer feel online.
That's awesome. I'm all for playing with real cards. TTS is just not for me, but I love playing with real cards, so I'd be happy to join some of those. And if you are also interested in joining some of those, reach out to Astrodar and let him know. I'm sure he will be setting up games soon. Yep. Thank you for coming by, Astrodar. It was great to have you. It was great to chat again. It was good to see you, and I hope you come back for a fourth visit sometime soon so you can beat Joss and be the #1 most hosted guest on the Winning Hand podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, and I will take any opportunity to one-up Joss. So,
amen. Take that, Joss. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.